Here are 3 things that can hurt a narcissist more than almost anything else. Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we are going to talk about something people often wonder about. Can a narcissist really cry? Can they actually feel emotional pain? The answer is yes. Narcissists can feel emotions, even when they often act like the victim or behave as if everyone else has wronged them. That same sensitivity that allows them to play the victim so convincingly can also make them surprisingly easy to hurt. A narcissist may have a very fragile sense of self, and many things can bruise their ego. Some situations may only bother them for a moment. Others can seriously shake the way they see themselves. And when the challenge comes from someone they respect, admire, or secretly look up to, the reaction can become much stronger. Few things affect a narcissist more than a direct challenge to their pride, status, or need for control. It does not really matter whether that challenge happens in front of other people or behind closed doors. The emotional sting can still be powerful. In simple terms, narcissists can create much of their own misery. They may build it through dishonesty, pretending to be someone they are not, and hiding deep feelings of insecurity. This might not matter much to an outsider, but there is one major difference. Narcissists often believe they should be above rejection, criticism, embarrassment, or failure. So the moment someone challenges that image, they may feel deeply threatened. And when they feel threatened, they may look for someone else to blame. In their mind, other people should carry the burden of their pain, while they should never have to face it themselves. Narcissism is also being discussed more openly today as a serious psychological issue. People with these patterns may need understanding, patience, and appropriate professional support. But there is another side that matters just as much. Sometimes a narcissist may act hypocritically, say one thing and do another, then depend on your kindness to keep receiving another chance. That is exactly where their emotional vulnerability can appear. So stay with me, because the next 3 points explain why certain experiences can hit their ego so hard. The first is being pushed away and left out. Narcissists often struggle when they are no longer receiving the attention, approval, or importance they expect. Even small criticism can feel much bigger to them because their confidence may depend heavily on outside validation. They can be deeply uncomfortable with the idea of being alone because they may rely on other people to reinforce their sense of importance. A narcissist may feel powerful when people are constantly responding to them, praising them, admiring them, or seeking their approval. Take that attention away, and the emotional reaction can be intense. This is one reason getting pulled into their world can make it difficult to step back out. Once you become part of a cycle of attention, conflict, apologies, promises, and renewed contact, leaving that cycle can feel complicated. And today, social media and instant messaging can make that cycle even easier to maintain. Someone does not have to be physically present to continue seeking attention. They can create an online image that makes their life appear exciting, successful, popular, and perfect. They can post carefully chosen pictures, receive comments, collect likes, and enjoy constant digital attention. That online world can become a source of validation. It can help maintain the image they want other people to believe. But here's what many people miss. Attention is not always the same thing as genuine connection. A person can receive hundreds of reactions and still feel deeply insecure underneath. When the attention suddenly disappears, that insecurity can become much harder to hide. And that is why being ignored, excluded, or pushed aside can affect a narcissist so strongly. They may not simply see it as someone walking away. They may experience it as a threat to their importance. Keep listening, because the second point goes even deeper. The second thing a narcissist can fear greatly is being exposed. I have touched on this idea before, but it is worth understanding because image can be extremely important to someone with strong narcissistic traits. They may work very hard to control how other people see them. They can tell one story to one person and a completely different story to someone else. They may exaggerate their achievements, hide their mistakes, or create an impressive version of themselves that does not match reality. Their life can become a performance designed to convince everyone around them that they are more successful, more intelligent, more important, or more desirable than they actually feel inside. So imagine what happens when that carefully created image begins to fall apart. Imagine people starting to notice the contradictions. Imagine the stories no longer adding up. Imagine the admiration slowly turning into questions. For someone whose identity depends heavily on appearances, that can feel extremely threatening. The fear is not always about the truth itself. Sometimes it is about losing control over the story. A narcissistic person may want to decide what others believe, what others know, and how others interpret their behavior. When that control disappears, their reaction can become intense. They may deny what happened. They may change the subject. They may accuse someone else. They may suddenly become angry or present themselves as the victim. The goal can be to protect the image at almost any cost, and this is where you need to pay attention. If you stop arguing and simply observe the pattern, you may begin to see things much more clearly. You do not have to expose anyone dramatically. You do not have to create a public confrontation. Sometimes reality reveals itself naturally when you stop protecting the false image for them. The carefully built story begins to weaken because fewer people are willing to carry it. That loss of control can be deeply uncomfortable for someone who depends on admiration and approval. And now we come to the third point, which may seem simple, but it can reveal a lot about how fragile their self-image really is. The third thing that can strongly affect a narcissist is criticism or an insult directed at the image they are trying to protect. Narcissists may understand very well how powerful words can be when they use them against other people. They may know exactly which comments will create guilt, confusion, shame, or self-doubt. They can sometimes use carefully chosen words to gain control over a conversation or shift responsibility away from themselves. But when the attention turns back toward them, the reaction can be very different. Even fair and reasonable criticism may be interpreted as a personal attack. Instead of hearing the message, they may focus on the fact that someone dared to challenge them. This is why honest feedback can sometimes produce a surprisingly strong response. The criticism does not necessarily have to be cruel. It may simply point out something they do not want to acknowledge. Yet because the person's self-image may already be unstable underneath, that small challenge can feel much larger than it appears from the outside. You may notice denial, anger, blame shifting, sudden defensiveness, or an attempt to make you feel guilty for speaking honestly. And this is the part I really want you to remember. The goal should not be to hurt a narcissist back. The goal is not revenge. If you spend your energy trying to destroy someone's ego, you may remain emotionally connected to the very person you are trying to escape. Your strongest position is often calmness, boundaries, distance, and self-respect. You do not need to insult them. You do not need to prove that they are wrong. You do not need to win every argument. Sometimes the most powerful response is simply refusing to participate in the cycle. When you stop feeding constant attention, stop defending yourself endlessly, and stop allowing someone else's reactions to control your emotions, the dynamic can change completely. And that is the real lesson behind these 3 points. Being ignored, being exposed, and receiving criticism may trigger a strong reaction in someone with narcissistic traits, because each one challenges the image they depend on. But you do not have to become cruel to protect yourself. You can simply become clear. You can recognize the pattern. You can step back. You can choose peace over endless conflict. And if you have ever wondered why someone reacted so strongly when you stopped giving them attention, challenged their story, or calmly pointed out their behavior, now you may understand the deeper reason. It may have had less to do with your words and more to do with what those words threatened inside them. Remember, your job is not to manage another person's ego. Your job is to protect your own peace. And once you understand that, their reactions no longer have the same power over you. Unfortunately, there is often some weakness hiding underneath the surface, and that is simply the difficult truth. Things can change quickly once their real behavior starts becoming visible. They may struggle to understand even basic truths about themselves, their actions, and the effect they have on other people. So, When you step back and look at the bigger picture, these are three things that can have a strong negative effect on someone with narcissistic traits. Once you pay close attention, their weak points can become easier to recognize. They may be secretive, they may manipulate people, and underneath all of that behavior, there can be fear, insecurity, and a strong need for validation. That is really what I wanted to share with you today. So, I am going to bring this part to a close. I hope you have a peaceful and positive rest of your week, and thank you for taking the time to listen. But stay with me because there is another important part of this conversation. Let us talk about what truly helps you move forward after dealing with a narcissist. One thing that can affect them is seeing you continue with your life and become genuinely happy without them. That can be difficult for someone who expected to remain important in your world. Narcissistic traits are often connected with envy and comparison. A person may look at your progress and wonder how you managed to move forward without them. They may struggle with the idea that you are doing better, feeling stronger, and creating a life they no longer control. Even people who appear financially successful or accomplished in their careers may still feel dissatisfied if their self-worth depends on constant praise and attention. Achievements alone cannot guarantee inner peace. When someone constantly needs outside validation, there can always be another goal, another compliment, another person to impress. Nothing feels like enough for very long. And sometimes, people with strong narcissistic patterns may feel a strange sense of relief when other people are struggling because it makes their own problems feel less obvious. Seeing someone else unhappy can temporarily make them feel less alone in their own emptiness. Keep that in mind. People who are unhappy inside may sometimes try to pull others into the same emotional space. That is why the old idea that misery loves company can feel so relevant here. But remember something even more important. Your mental and emotional well-being matters far more than anything a narcissist thinks, says, or does. They may notice when you are hurt. They may notice when you are angry, and they may notice when you are still carrying resentment or hoping for an apology. Those emotional openings can sometimes become opportunities for them to pull you back into the same cycle. So protect your distance when necessary. Be careful around people who constantly defend harmful behavior or carry messages back and forth. Some people refer to these individuals as flying monkeys because they may act as messengers, defenders, or supporters of the person causing the conflict. If you want to protect yourself, one of the healthiest choices can be reducing unnecessary contact with both the narcissistic person and those who repeatedly enable the behavior. Keeping the door open, even just a little, can sometimes delay your healing. And of course, the amount of time healing takes depends on how long the situation lasted, how intense it was, and how deeply it affected you. There is no fixed timeline. Your recovery belongs to you. If you still have to interact with a narcissistic person because of family, work, children, or other responsibilities, emotional control becomes extremely important. You do not have to react to every comment. You do not have to answer every accusation. You do not have to explain yourself again and again. One useful approach is to remain calm, brief, and emotionally neutral. Think of it as refusing to give the conflict extra fuel. You can walk past a provocation without taking the bait. You can hear the words without allowing them to control your mood. The most powerful thing you can do is protect your peace instead of trying to prove a point. This can be especially difficult for someone who expects emotional reactions because they may not understand why you suddenly refuse to participate. And keep watching, because this next part explains why silence and emotional distance can change the entire dynamic. Narcissistic people may sometimes return to former targets simply to reopen old arguments, revisit old conflicts, or see whether they still have emotional influence. They may expect that life without them has been difficult for you. They may want evidence that you are still struggling because it can reassure them that they still matter. But once they realize you are no longer interested in the endless back and forth, the dynamic begins to change. They lose access to the emotional reaction they once received. They may have enjoyed seeing you become angry, resentful, or desperate to prove yourself because those reactions kept you emotionally connected. Revenge can do the same thing. It may feel powerful for a moment, but it can keep your attention locked onto the person you are trying to leave behind. And that is the trap. If you remain consumed by anger, you are still giving that person space in your mind. You may have physically walked away while emotionally remaining stuck in the same story. That is why your goal should not be revenge. Your goal should be freedom. At the same time, if you begin looking at your entire life through a negative lens, it can become harder to notice opportunities for growth and peace. After emotional abuse, changing your mindset does not mean pretending nothing happened. It means refusing to let what happened become the definition of who you are. You can learn from it. You can rebuild your confidence. You can become more careful with boundaries. You can become stronger without becoming bitter. If you truly want to change your life after narcissistic abuse, you have to be willing to change how you think, how you respond, and how you treat yourself. Keep moving forward with courage, even on the days when progress feels slow. And here is something many people discover later. When a narcissistic person sees someone they once hurt doing well, it can sometimes bring up feelings of envy, regret, or frustration. They may appear happy for you on the outside, but your progress can still remind them that they no longer have the same place in your life. Your growth can become a reminder that the relationship ended and that you continued moving forward. If you manage to keep your inner light alive after everything you experienced, that can be difficult for someone who expected you to remain broken. They may struggle to accept that you rebuilt yourself, found peace, and created a better future. Your healing becomes proof that their behavior did not destroy you. And that is why choosing to live as though their opinion no longer controls you can be one of the strongest responses available to you. It may upset them, but more importantly, it frees you. Around this stage, you may notice the person beginning to circle back. They may test the waters. They may send a casual message. They may suddenly become friendly. They may look for a small opening to see whether you are still emotionally available. This is where you need to be careful. Reconnecting with someone who repeatedly harmed you can bring you back into familiar patterns. Unless there has been genuine accountability, real change, and consistent responsibility for their actions, you have every right to keep the door closed. Words alone are not enough. Promises alone are not enough. A sudden emotional moment is not proof that someone has changed. Sometimes a person may use a romantic gesture, a sweet message, or an unexpected apology to make you question the decision you made. They may remind you of the good moments and make you forget why you walked away. But if nothing has truly changed underneath the surface, the same harmful cycle can eventually return. That is why actions over time matter far more than temporary emotions. If you know someone from your past is watching your progress, remember that your life does not need to become a performance for them. You do not have to prove that you are happy. You do not have to make them jealous. You do not have to show them what they lost. Your worth existed before they recognized it, and it will remain whether they ever acknowledge it or not. Your success and personal growth may remind them of their own limitations, but that is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to keep becoming healthier, wiser, calmer, and more secure in yourself. Thriving after narcissistic abuse can feel like the ultimate form of payback, but the deeper victory is that you no longer need payback at all. You are building a life that does not revolve around them. You are protecting your peace. You are strengthening your boundaries. You are allowing your inner light to return. And no one deserves the power to take that away from you. I hope what I shared today gives you something useful to think about. I hope the next week brings you peace, clarity, and strength. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I will see you again in the next video. But before we finish, there is another fascinating question we need to explore. What happens when a narcissistic person actually wants you back? There are several behaviors that can reveal when they're trying to reconnect, and one of the most important is something commonly called hoovering. Hoovering is a term used to describe attempts to pull someone back into a relationship or emotional cycle after distance has been created. It can happen when a person senses that they are losing influence or control. They may suddenly contact you, bring up old memories, act unusually kind, promise change, or find another reason to reopen communication. The behavior can look harmless at first, but if you know what to watch for, the pattern becomes much easier to recognize. And the next signs are where things get especially interesting, so stay with me.